The cowboy thought he was rescuing a lonely Apache widow from the unforgiving desert. He had no idea that the woman carried a secret connected to his own past. What she placed in his hands days later was worth far more than gold. It would change his future, heal two broken hearts, and rewrite both of their destinies forever. The morning sun rose over the wide desert, covering the sand and distant hills with a warm golden light. Jacob Turner guided his horse along a lonely trail that few travelers still used. He had spent years working as a cowboy, delivering cattle between small frontier towns. Life had taught him to expect long days, quiet nights, and very little company. As he reached the top of a rocky ridge, something caught his attention. Far below, beside a dry stream, sat a lone woman wrapped in a faded blanket. She did not move as the wind carried dust across the ground. Her horse stood nearby with its head lowered, too tired to continue. Jacob urged his horse forward. When he reached her, he noticed the sadness in her eyes before she spoke a single word. "You have traveled far," he said gently. The woman looked up. "So have you." Her calm voice carried both strength and sorrow. Jacob offered his canteen. She accepted it with quiet gratitude. "My name is Jacob." After a moment, she answered, "I am Ayanna." Jacob noticed the small beaded necklace she wore around her neck. It was carefully made and clearly precious to her. "You are alone." She lowered her eyes. "My husband passed away last winter." Silence settled between them. Jacob understood loss better than most. Years earlier, he had buried both of his parents after a harsh winter swept through the valley where they had lived. Since then, the open frontier had become both his home and his escape. Ayanna looked toward the endless desert. "I have nowhere left to go." Jacob studied the worn saddle, the exhausted horse, and the few belongings she carried. No one should face such a journey alone. He made his decision without another thought. "My ranch is 2 days from here." She looked at him with surprise. "You do not even know me." Jacob smiled kindly. "I know enough." For the first time in many days, a faint smile appeared on Ayanna's face. Together they began the long ride across the desert, unaware that fate had already begun weaving their paths together. Neither realized that hidden inside Ayanna's small leather pouch was a family keepsake that would soon reveal an unexpected connection to Jacob's own past, changing both of their lives forever. 2 days later, Jacob and Ayanna arrived at the Morgan Creek Ranch. It was a quiet place surrounded by rolling hills, tall cottonwood trees, and wide fields that stretched toward the distant mountains. Though the ranch was modest, it carried a peaceful charm that made visitors feel welcome. Jacob helped Ayanna down from her horse. "You are safe here," he said. "Stay as long as you need." She looked around the ranch with grateful eyes. "It has been a long time since I have felt safe." Old Samuel, the ranch foreman, greeted them with a warm smile. "Any friend of yours is welcome here, Jacob." The kindness surprised Ayanna. She had expected questions, but instead she found open doors and gentle hearts. Over the following days, she quietly settled into ranch life. She helped prepare meals, watered the garden each morning, and mended worn work shirts for the ranch hands. Without asking for recognition, she found small ways to make the house feel alive again. The workers soon noticed the change. The dining table, once silent, was now filled with conversation and laughter. Even Jacob, who had spent years keeping to himself, found himself smiling more often. One rainy afternoon, Ayanna cleaned an old wooden cabinet in the living room. As she dusted the shelves, a faded photograph slipped onto the floor. She picked it up carefully. The picture showed a young cowboy standing beside an older man wearing a familiar beaded necklace. Her heart skipped. She reached into the small leather pouch she had carried across the desert and removed the necklace that had belonged to her late husband. The patterns were nearly identical. When Jacob entered the room, he noticed the photograph in her hands. His expression changed. "I have not seen that picture in years," he said softly. Ayanna looked from the photograph to the necklace. "There is something you need to know." Jacob sensed that the answer to a mystery buried deep in his family's past was about to be revealed. Jacob sat across from Ayanna as she carefully held the old photograph in one hand and the beaded necklace in the other. "My husband asked me to protect this," she said softly. "He told me that if I ever met a man named Jacob Turner, I was to place it in his hands." Jacob stared at her in disbelief. "My name." She nodded. He believed the day would come. With great care, Ayanna untied a small cloth hidden inside the leather pouch. Folded within it was a weathered letter, its edges worn by time but carefully preserved. "I never opened it," she said. "It was not meant for me." Jacob slowly unfolded the letter. The handwriting was familiar. It belonged to his father. His hands trembled as he began to read. Years earlier, during a terrible drought, Jacob's father had become lost while driving cattle across the frontier. Injured and without water, he had been found by an Apache family. They sheltered him, cared for him, and guided him safely back to his ranch. Before leaving, Jacob's father promised that one day he would repay their kindness. Life moved quickly, and before he could return, he became ill and passed away. The letter ended with a heartfelt request. "If this reaches my son, I ask him to honor the friendship I could never repay. Kindness should never be forgotten." Jacob lowered the letter, his eyes filled with emotion. "So your husband was the son of the man who saved my father?" Ayanna smiled gently. "Yes." He carried this promise for many years. At that moment, Jacob realized that her greatest gift was not the necklace or the letter. It was the chance to fulfill a promise that had waited a lifetime. Just then, the sound of galloping horses echoed from outside. Samuel hurried to the doorway, his face filled with concern. "Jacob," he called, "there are strangers riding toward the ranch, and they are asking for Ayanna by name." Jacob stepped onto the front porch as 3 riders came to a stop at the ranch gate. They were not outlaws or bounty hunters as he had first feared. They were respected Apache elders from Ayanna's community. The oldest rider slowly dismounted and greeted Ayanna with a warm smile. "We have been searching for you." Ayanna bowed her head respectfully. "I am grateful you found me." The elder turned toward Jacob. "You gave her shelter when she needed it most. For that, our people thank you." Jacob nodded. "She would have done the same for anyone." The elder smiled. "That is why she was chosen to protect the letter." Everyone gathered inside the ranch house, where Ayanna carefully placed the necklace and the letter on the table. The elder examined them before looking at Jacob. "Your father once saved our family as well." Jacob looked surprised. "I thought your family rescued him." "They did," the elder replied. "But after returning home, your father secretly sent food, tools, and cattle during a difficult winter. He never asked for recognition. He simply wanted to keep his promise." Jacob had never known that part of his father's story. For a moment, the room fell silent. The elder then reached into a leather satchel and removed a folded map. This belonged to Ayanna's husband. Jacob carefully opened it. The map showed a fertile valley with a fresh spring that had remained untouched for generations. "It lies beyond the western ridge," the elder explained. "Your father once helped protect it. Now we wish to share it with you." Jacob looked at Ayanna with gratitude. Before he could speak, a ranch hand rushed through the front door. "Jacob," he said, trying to catch his breath, "the valley is not empty. Someone else has already reached it." Jacob and Ayanna exchanged worried glances. The place that carried the hopes of both families might already be slipping away. Jacob and Ayanna rode toward the valley as the morning sun climbed above the mountains. When they arrived, they found a small group of settlers studying the land. They had been told the valley had no rightful caretakers and hoped to build new homes there. Jacob greeted them calmly. "There has been a misunderstanding." He showed them the old map and the letter that connected both families to the valley. The Apache elders also shared the history of the land and the promise that had been honored for many years. The settlers listened carefully. After a long silence, their leader smiled. "We came looking for a place to build a future, not to take away someone else's." With respect, they agreed to settle elsewhere and wished both communities well. Relief spread across the valley. For the first time in many years, the promise between the two families was complete. That evening, Jacob and Ayanna stood beside the clear spring as the sunset painted the sky with shades of gold and orange. Jacob looked at her with a grateful smile. "When I found you in the desert, I thought I was saving a stranger." Ayanna gently shook her head. "No, Jacob. You were finding the family that fate had prepared for you all along. Jacob carefully took her hand. The sorrow they had both carried no longer felt so heavy. In time, friendship became trust, and trust quietly blossomed into love. The greatest gift Diana had given Jacob was never the necklace or the letter. It was the chance to heal the past, keep an old promise alive, and build a future where two families walked forward together with hope, peace, and love. Thank you for watching this heartfelt Wild West story. Sometimes the greatest treasures are not gold or land, but the promises we keep and the people we meet along the way. Jacob and Diana's journey reminds us that kindness is never wasted, and one compassionate act can echo across generations. What began as the rescue of a heartbroken widow became a story of healing, friendship, and a love neither of them expected to find. If this story touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more original cowboy stories filled with courage, hope, and unforgettable moments. Tell us in the comments, what was your favorite moment in Jacob and Diana's journey, and do you believe kindness always finds its way back? Share this story with your friends and family who enjoy emotional Western adventures and inspiring tales of love and second chances. Thank you for being part of our community. Until our next frontier adventure, take care, keep believing in the power of compassion, and we will see you in the next story.